It's Wednesday. It's Uncovered. I'm Anthony. He's Ron. And we're about to uncover the MAGA propaganda not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, where do we start? How about Lindsey Graham's funeral? It's probably a good place to start. Was Vladimir Putin at the funeral? I just wondered, maybe he organized it, paid for it. No, there was no sign of him, right?
The odd thing is that I think Netanyahu was there because Trump went straight to the funeral from his meeting with Netanyahu. So I think Netanyahu was there. Yes, he was there because that was one of the reasons why he traveled here.
That's right. And Lindsey Graham, of course, was a huge supporter of Israel and was the one bringing legislation about support for Israel to the House, which Trump has promised to continue doing despite the death of Lindsey Graham. So there was kind of interesting. There was a few interesting things that kind of went on at the funeral event. I suppose the first and most obvious is Donald Trump falling asleep. I mean, this, again, is something that keeps happening wherever he is. Give him a chair, give him a rest.
Almost every meeting, in the middle of the afternoon, he falls asleep. And it was funny because I woke up that morning and he had done another blizzard of True Social posts. He did like 60 of them in the course of about 4 hours.
Yes.
The last one was at 1:27 a.m. And I was like, there's some speculation whether he does those himself. It's a mixed bag. Some of them he does do himself. I think those super late ones are him. They're not Harp. So, and all his staff say he stays up all night. So I think that was his. His last one was at 1:27. And I'm like, he's got the meeting with Zelenskyy at 9 a.m., So, and then he had the Zelenskyy meeting, then the Netanyahu meeting, and then he went straight to the funeral. So he obviously didn't get much sleep. And we've seen this time and time again where he falls asleep constantly in these public, like, it's not even like falling asleep like in your office or dozing off on your couch. He's falling asleep with 1,000 people all around him with loud things happening. He's still falling asleep. And the other crazy thing is he's still, to this day, every time he posts about Joe Biden, he continues to call him Sleepy Joe Biden,
right?
Which is, I don't recall. Do you recall? I don't ever recall seeing Joe Biden sleeping in public like this.
No, and but this is the irony, isn't it? And then it's like the irony is, it's like they're so dumb, these people, I refer to the President of the United States here, that they don't even see the irony that he is calling Joe Biden sleepy and falling asleep in the same sentence.
Because it highlights him doing it. I think now it does, and I think probably back then, from the last 4 years before he became president, I think he was probably falling asleep all the time, but we didn't see it because it was at Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster or whatever. And
yes,
there would never. The other thing is Fox never shows these clips. All these sleeping clips that we show all the time. Not once has Fox ever shown a clip of Donald Trump sleeping in a meeting. Not once. And, I expect them to cover up his stuff like that, even though they also spent 4 years calling him Sleepy Joe Biden. But the frustrating thing for me is that none of the networks show it either, though. Like ABC, CBS, NBC, you would think that they would go, well, Donald Trump fell asleep again in the Oval Office during a meeting or, in a public gathering and show the clip. Never do they show,
because they're complicit.
Only networks who do is like MS Now, MSNBC.
Well, they are complicit in the rise of this dictatorship. They have a vested interest. Their ownership supports him. And I was thinking this the other day. Somebody sent me a clip of Laura Ingraham. It might have been you, actually. But the way she was talking, I was just like, we really do live in a bubble. We talk about them living in a bubble, but we live in a bubble. I mean, you and I, obviously, as reporters, we study outside of our ecosphere because that's our jobs. But most people who are progressive and liberal thinkers live in a bubble that is a bubble of truth. And the other side is living in a bubble of lies. And so we can forget how little access they get to the kind of information we just take for granted.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely true. I've had these things happen to me so many times. Like, I can remember meeting with someone who wasn't that political, but a little bit political. And they were like, there was no violence on January 6th. This guy was telling me this, no cops were beaten up. That's all nonsense. They were just walking around. And I actually just went, let me just give me 15 seconds. And I just went on YouTube and pulled up, the montage of them beating on the car. And I'm like, just watch this for 1 minute, and I showed it to him and he watched and he was like, wow. He's like, I never saw that before. I'm like,
yeah.
How can you not have seen that? Like, we've all seen it, but they're like,
right. But that's the point I'm making.
Silos.
Yeah. Completely different media ecosphere. Very interesting. Okay, let's take a look at Donald Trump having a little nap, not quite being able to quite stay awake, and reaching for his favorite Tic Tac. Now, he loves a little minty sweet in his mouth, a little minty candy, because apparently when he was reporting on when the reporting was being done on, say, the Access Hollywood tape and him talking about his prowess with women, I think he admitted that he likes to pop a Tic Tac in his mouth before he makes his approach to women. So clearly he's one of these people that is never without a Tic Tac. My dad was never without a Tic Tac, interestingly. So I don't know what that says about him. Anyway, let's take a look at the clip. Here we go.
Pressed on. There's a lot of times it's easy. It's easier to bow out. It's easier just to go a different way, the path of least resistance. But he stayed the course. He stayed the course even when it wasn't going to make him popular. He knew, as we've heard today, right?
Yes. Just about holding it together. I mean, sleep or this kind of narcolepsy is a side effect of dementia as well.
Yes, it is.
It's not just being old and being disgusting. It's also a sign of a demented president.
I mean, you can also see when he does wake up, occasionally, he doesn't even want to be. You could tell from the minute that he walked in the door, he did not want to be there. He wanted no part of any of it. Yeah. But he has to do it. I mean, if he didn't go, that would be the headlines everywhere. Trump skipped Lindsey's funeral, his buddy, So, but you can just tell, like, because in theory, the whole thing is supposed to be about Lindsey. It's not about him. So he doesn't want to sit through any event that's going to go an hour where they're talking about someone else. And I think that Sean Hannity, who is, buddies with that's their circle. If Trump has any friends, I mean, he's got maybe a small handful. I wouldn't say friends in the classic sense, acquaintances that he spends time with. Hannity is definitely in the top 5, and so is Lindsey. So the three of them, so Hannity gives the first eulogy. And I think Hannity, knowing that Trump was already falling asleep and bored and getting antsy, decided to make his entire speech about Trump,
right,
and how much Lindsey loved Trump, which Trump woke up for that part.
Well, we know that Trump is only interested if Trump's name is in the title, right? And we've seen this at cabinet meetings where Trump is falling asleep and the other people around the table are having to make it about Trump to keep him interested. The fact that it's happening at Lindsey Graham's funeral is just insane. Let's take a look at Sean Hannity, and please note the position of his parting. It fascinates me. I do have a little bit of hair jealousy, but not with this guy. It's like a parting is normally on here, right? And then that goes across. I think I can remember from memory. It's been a while. But for some reason, Hannity's parting is almost dead center. Let's take a look.
There ye may be also. Lindsey, Mr. President, I would argue in my mind, probably has a heavenly version of Mar-a-Lago. It may even be a little bigger. He may have a little more gold in the Oval Office in his mansion in heaven. And I wouldn't be surprised if he added one big, beautiful ballroom and an arch somewhere on the property, because he would want to obviously duplicate his dearest friend in life, you, Mr. President. Lindsey, my friend.
Yeah, it's so embarrassing.
I mean, I've already seen it like 10 times, but I cracked up every time.
Yeah.
A Mar-a-Lago in the sky
Yeah.
with extra gold. And first of all, that's not Lindsey. That's Trump. I mean, Lindsey doesn't have all that crap. His house is pretty modest house. He doesn't have all the gold bling and all that stuff. You know, it's like, that's Trump's world. The fact that Lindsey played golf with him all the time doesn't mean that Lindsey wants heaven to look like Mar-a-Lago.
But it's typical Republican rewriting the history the moment that someone is gone. People did it with Charlie Kirk as well. Changing the history of who these people were and what they were about. You know, I was reading this stuff like, you know, these kind of odes to Lindsey, one of the greatest statesmen and all this stuff. And I was thinking, what are you talking about? The guy was a freaking nightmare. He was a terrible, terrible person. He was extremely racist, extremely prejudiced. He, you know, was kind of, you know, most likely closeted with his own sexuality, the worst kept secret in Washington, and yet was vehemently anti-abortion and anti-LGBTQ rights. The guy was a disaster.
Oh, in foreign policy, he was even worse. I mean, he cheerleaded us into every war. He was the leading person who did it in Congress. You know, what was also funny was the Fox interview, because Fox kept having Trump on like 3, 4, 5 times to talk about Lindsey, you know, specifically.
Yes. Well, they didn't have a choice. He probably kept phoning in.
Every time. Yeah, they wanted Trump to come on and like do an homage or pay tribute to Lindsey. And again, you could tell like Trump didn't want to do it. And Trump would keep veering off into like Iran or the SAVE Act, you know, and they kept trying to redirect him like, yeah, but what about Lindsey? Tell us about something nice about Lindsey. They kept trying to do that. And the funny part was he kept saying over and over, like he could never give you anything personal about him or any like deep conversation that they had about life or kids or relationships. None of that. He just kept telling like the same 2 little stories over and over again. He would say, Lindsey sucked at golf. You know, he would say, you know, Lindsey played a lot of golf, played golf all the time, and he was terrible. He wasn't very good, but he liked being out there with the guys. He kept saying that over and over again. So, well, that's very sweet tribute, you know, telling everybody Lindsey sucked at golf. And then the other thing he kept saying was how much Lindsey loved war. Lindsey never saw a war he didn't love. He wanted us to be in every single war. He was crazy. He loved war. And I'm like, this is a heartwarming tribute.
Yeah.
You know, he sucked at golf and he loved war. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Because, you know, we shouldn't be surprised, Ron, because Trump doesn't have any friends. Lindsey Graham was not a friend of Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham used Donald Trump. He manipulated Donald Trump to get policy in place, as most people do. It's the same with Hannity. He's not a friend of Donald Trump. He uses Donald Trump.
Together they did it because Hannity would always bring on Lindsey on his show, knowing that Trump was watching.
Right.
And they would always do it when he was like wavering on some foreign policy thing. You know, they would team up together to put that out, knowing he was watching the show. If you want to call that a friendship, maybe that's the closest Trump can get to a friendship.
Because the mindset of the narcissist is that he uses people, and you know, so much has been written about this, and the using up the oxygen, the narcissist using up the oxygen, and when the oxygen runs out, you discard people and you move on to your next victim. So there's all that going on. But of course, you're dealing with Hannity and, in this case, Lindsey Graham, who are both politicians, even though Hannity might not be, but he effectively is a politician, just, you know, on television, and they have needs. They have the ear of the president, even though there's a tiny little bit missing, smallest little bit missing.
If you say so.
Yeah, the jury's still out, obviously. Okay, let's talk about. We'll stay with war because Zelenskyy shows up into the U.S. Netanyahu shows up too. They both want to meet with Trump. They both have a kind of ulterior motive. Did Zelenskyy go to Lindsey Graham's funeral?
No.
He was there to ask for support.
Oddly enough, though, well, a couple things are interesting, though. First was before that, they had the Lindsey service in the rotunda where he didn't lie in state because I think he didn't meet the criteria for that, but they just brought his casket in there for like the day, and then I think they're
Yes.
moving it out. So what happened was that little ceremony was going to take place at 9:30. The White House schedules the Zelensky meeting at the exact same time, which means, Trump can't go to this because he has to meet with Zelensky. But also, someone has to go to represent the White House.
Yeah.
Who's going to go to the rotunda? J.D. Vance. How convenient that when Zelensky shows up to the White House, Vance is not there this time because he has to be over there. Of course, they don't want Vance anywhere near the meeting with Zelensky. So that was number one. And number two, the odd thing is that even though they had separate meetings, they both came to deliver the same message. I mean, each had separate agendas. You know, Zelensky wanted the license to manufacture Patriot missiles in Ukraine, and he apparently got that commitment from Trump. That was the number one reason why he was here. Yes. But he was also here to inform Trump that Ukraine intelligence had proof that Putin was using Russian satellites, to target American troops at American bases that were specifically used to kill the most recent American troops that were in Jordan. That was Russian satellites did the targeting for Iran on that. Ukraine intelligence had that information that he was going to present to Trump to try and prove to him that Putin is helping Iran kill U.S. troops. Netanyahu, independently, separately, had the same intelligence. The Israelis had it too. So both of them were there to present that to Trump. And based on the interviews that we have seen, Trump isn't especially interested in that for whatever reason.
Well, I'll just read the post that Zelensky put out on X. He says, I will instruct our intelligence to share with our partners the information we have regarding Russia's new assistance to the Iranian regime. Since the beginning of July, we have recorded active Russian satellite surveillance of the Gulf states and U.S. military facilities located there. These images subsequently appear in Iran. At the same time, there is a clear correlation between Russia's satellite imagery of these sites and Iranian strikes, both before the attacks, in preparation for them, and afterward, to assess the damage inflicted. So he's laying his cards on the table, again, making the point very clear. I mean, you know, we haven't spoken much about Russia with regard to Ukraine. And, you know, I interviewed Bill Browder on the Weekend Show a couple of weeks ago, who's kind of, you know, public enemy number one in Russia, who's our former, you know, biggest financier, US financier, British financier. And, you know, he was saying that really Putin right now is enjoying everything that's going on, all of the disasters that Trump is causing, especially with Iran, that he's almost like sitting back and just watching the show. Because that's kind of how it feels to us. Like, you know, they are running out of weapons. They have been using too much of the stockpile. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But with regard to this, intelligence is very interesting. It's not a word that really chimes with Donald Trump, ironically, is it?
Yeah, and it's not just, you know, it's not just Ukraine. It's Israeli intelligence. And you have to believe we have the best intelligence services in the world. I mean, the Israelis are pretty good too, but you have to believe that we had the same information, our intelligence agencies. Right. There has to be overwhelming proof. And yet Donald Trump will say nothing. And he's asked about that in interviews and by the press, you know, what about these reports that Russia is helping Iran kill U.S. troops? And he just says, oh, you know, I'll talk to Putin about it. You know, I'll check out. I don't know. Putin gave me his word. He told me he wasn't doing it. I take him at his word because I don't think he would want to make me mad, and that would make me mad. I mean, this is lunacy. I mean, it's like if any other country in the world was helping Iran target U.S. troops, Trump would be going crazy. He'd be bombing them. He'd be hitting them with tariffs, sanctions, you name it. But because it's Vladimir Putin, he won't say a word about it.
But does that mean that he's actually on Russia's side? Because, you know, you say that the US has the smartest intelligence in the world, but Trump doesn't read it. Trump is not privy to this stuff.
So
he doesn't. Right. So what good is it? And he's also fired so many people in the State Department as well. Let's look at this interview where we're hearing about this intelligence. This is from Face the Nation.
So, Ambassador, Ukraine's President Zelenskyy is headed to Washington this week for Senator Graham's memorial ceremony. Zelenskyy said yesterday that since the beginning of July, Ukraine has recorded active Russian satellite surveillance of the Gulf states and the U.S. military installations that are located there. And he says those images then appear in Iran. How deep is the level of Russian involvement in helping Iran target and kill Americans?
Well, I think you've seen this symbiotic relationship with Russia, Iran, particularly with the Iranian drones. Now that manufacturing capability has been devastated in Iran itself, but Iran has been providing drones and drone technology to Russia that they are then using on Kyiv. In terms of the active help, look, I'll just let the president's statement this week stand on its own, that he has spoken to both Putin and Xi about this and has put both on notice, frankly, that they should not be assisting and that bad things will happen if they are.
This would suggest that they haven't stopped assisting. Zelenskyy says that's happening in July.
Okay, well, we'll let Zelensky's statement, I think, just stand on its own, but the president's statement is out there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because the president hasn't read anything and doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know what day it is.
Prior to becoming a member of the Trump administration, first as NSA, which he was fired after the Signal chat thing, where he added the reporter to the Signal chat waltz. And then he became UN ambassador. Prior to that, but you see there, he cannot go against Donald Trump. He's joined the cult. He's part of the cult team. And so when he's confronted twice about it by Margaret Brennan, very good question, excellent, tight question, direct to the point, he will not answer it. He just says, well, Trump said he talked to Putin and he told him not to do it or bad things will happen. Trump didn't even go that far. Trump didn't even say that. All Trump said was, I don't think Putin would want to upset me. That's as far as Trump would go. And Wallace takes that a little nudge further. But what is Trump going to do to Russia? Like, what has he ever done to Russia? Nothing. Zero. Zip, zero, nada. And by the way, the Russia sanctions bill that was passed, the Lindsey Graham Russia sanctions bill, let me explain why so many Democrats voted against this, even though they are in favor of Russian sanctions, because this is a red herring, this thing. And I'm going to make a prediction about how this is going to be used. What this says is that any country that buys oil, natural gas, and any energy stuff, commodity from Russia can be subject to a tariff up to 100% on all of their goods from the U.S. So it gave Trump the legal authority to impose 100% tariff on any country that buys Russian energy, which, by the way, is like South Korea, Japan, the Netherlands, China, India, Turkey, several other European countries. Still, some of them stopped buying Russian oil, but they still buy the gas. So, the question is, how is Trump now going to use this new tariff power against 50 countries in the world who buy stuff from Russia? Is he going to use it to hurt Russia, or is he going to use it as a weapon to go after those countries, many of whom are our allies?
Yeah. Well, former allies. I mean, we need to be clear that the axis has shifted already. And we're going to keep coming back to this, because I think that Trump kind of goes quiet on Russia sometimes just to throw people off the scent because there's so much other stuff happening. But he hasn't wavered from his support of Russia at all. And, I was thinking that I was having a conversation with my wife about, what might happen to Trump come, after 2028. And I was thinking, a bit like some other leaders who've gone missing, to find sanctuary in another country, where would Trump end up going to avoid prosecution in America? He'd either go to Saudi, Qatar, or Russia. I wouldn't put it past him to kind of end up in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I think it'd be more like Dubai,
Yeah.
or Buenos Aires or something.
Right. Right. Well, let's not put
I don't
it
think
past
it would
him.
be
No.
Russia. Oh, maybe, but I don't think so.
Well, safe harbor. That's all he's looking for, and he hasn't said a bad word about Vladimir Putin. And if we go back to Helsinki, he believed, as you mentioned earlier, he believed Putin over U.S. security services about election meddling.
That's this all over again. It's the
all
same
over
thing.
again. Repeating
Putin told me he
itself.
wasn't helping Iran, so I take him at his word. All the Israeli intelligence, U.S. intelligence, Ukrainian intelligence all says different. But no, I believe Putin. He's an honest guy. That's our boy.
Yeah. I mean, in another time, if in another world, if it was Reagan that had said that, if it was Bush or Clinton that had said that, it would have been impeachment. It would have been, everybody would have been on it on both sides. But as you said earlier, with everybody, including the Director of National Intelligence, everybody is under the spell of Donald Trump. So what chance does the country have if he is the priority rather than national security?
So
let's talk about
who's supporting the troops? Who's standing by the troops?
Right.
Democrats criticizing the war, being accused of being unpatriotic, or these people who will not criticize the tyrant in Russia who is killing our troops, helping kill our troops.
Yeah. And of course, they're fudging the numbers. We haven't mentioned that. We don't know how many American soldiers have been killed because they keep twisting the numbers around. And that is going to be a huge scandal when we get to the bottom of it. All right, Laura Loomer, we mentioned last week as changing her mind on the war in Ukraine. She was another person living in an information silo. She believed all the propaganda about Zelenskyy being a Nazi and all of this stuff, right? So now she's kind of spent time in Ukraine, and she's even had a chance to interview Zelenskyy and asks him about this meeting with Trump that turned out to be with JD. Let's take a look.
It really seems like the tone has changed.
Yeah,
since your
absolutely.
visit when you got yelled at by the vice president in the Oval Office.
You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a good
Graham,
position.
I
You
was
don't have the
saying,
cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
So my question to you is what happened? Because it seems like the relationship has greatly improved. Is there something that you could share with the viewers about maybe your conversations with the president?
You are right, the tone has changed, absolutely. We had first changing moment in Rome, in Vatican. Yes, it was not long meeting, but I always said that is, I think, historic moment because we changed the relations during 15-20 minutes. So nobody was around us. We've been only two of us, and I was very happy to hear president, and I hope, and I was, and he heard me, and I heard him, and I think it was let it be between two of us, but it was very good. We come down, and it was very good, and I'm so happy because a lot of lives depends on such relations and dialogue.
Loomer unleashed in Ukraine. It's very interesting, actually, that she is really the only person that's got to ask Zelenskyy the types of questions that really journalists should have been asking for the last year or so. But what do you make of this, Ron?
Yeah, that's a point I was going to make. There's 2 points that I want to make about this, which is number one, the biggest theme that I've heard from Democrats, people in our audience and people who read our stuff. The biggest comment is why the question is, why did Zelenskyy do this? Why did he agree to do this interview with Loomer? And then the second point, and I'll answer that, but the second point is that, the other thing is Loomer being sincere? Is this legit? What's her angle? Yeah. And then the last point I'll make is that she actually, I listened to these clips of the interview that she posted, and they were actually very newsworthy. And the crazy thing is, mainstream media wouldn't report on any of it. because they don't want to, I guess, give any legitimacy to Loomer. They reported on her going over there, but not what took place in the interview. But I thought, that was the first time that I can recall Zelenskyy ever being asked that question about his reaction to getting yelled at in the Oval Office and what happened that caused the relationship to sort of repair or have them sort of be civil with one another again after that. I think there was a number of reasons besides the one that Zelenskyy cited. But what Zelenskyy noted was when he showed up at the Pope's funeral and requested to speak with Trump, and Trump said he would give him like 5 minutes, and then they met, and there's that famous photo of them sitting in the Vatican in this, just the two of them, like nose to nose, face to face. And it appears that they were very deep in discussion with Zelenskyy doing most of the talking.
Right.
And, but we never knew what took place there. And so Zelenskyy credits that meeting as a breakthrough event where he said he felt he was finally able to kind of get through some things to Trump. Because when that meeting took place in the Oval Office in March 2025, think about it. All the press was in there. You had Marge Green's boyfriend. By the way, they got married yesterday. So Marge Green's husband now, Brian Glenn, was asking him about not wearing a suit, going after him about, you got Vance yelling at him about not saying thank you. So it was like a circus atmosphere. But the meeting in the Vatican was just the two of them. There was no one else around. So I think that that's an interesting point that Zelenskyy would highlight that as a turning point. So why did Zelenskyy do it? Well, I think that Zelenskyy is very smart in how to play the angles in the United States, unlike Netanyahu, who is just burning to the ground Israel's reputation in the United States among the people of the United States. Zelenskyy is the opposite. I think he's masterful at handling U.S. public opinion. And what he sees is, like, at this point, the only people who are really against him are the hardcore MAGA. And he sees Laura Loomer, who I think flipped on this because of Russia helping Iran. Keep in mind, Loomer hates Iran more than any other. She hates a lot of people, but she hates Iran more than anything. Iran is her number one Satan in the world. She hates, and she doesn't like Muslims, but she especially doesn't like the Iranian regime. And so when she became convinced that Russia was helping Iran and providing the drone technology back and forth and all that, that I think was what changed Loomer's mind on Russia and opened her mind up to sort of stop listening to the Russian propaganda. And I think Zelenskyy saw an opportunity there to take one of the most influential people inside the MAGA movement. And whatever you might think about Loomer, she is very influential in the MAGA movement. She has millions of followers, a popular YouTube show. And by the way, Donald Trump listens to her. Donald Trump takes her phone calls, takes her texts, meets with her at Mar-a-Lago in Bedminster. So I think Zelenskyy correctly said, look, if this person is ready to flip and get on our side and go back to the United States and argue our case in the belly of the beast, the MAGA movement, then I'm going to do whatever I can to facilitate that. And by the way, that has happened. Loomer for the last few weeks has done 24/7 arguing and fighting with MAGA people about Ukraine, which is exactly probably what Zelenskyy wanted.
Yeah, it is clever. I mean, it goes back again to this being all about politics and no one being anyone's friend, right? This is what you want to use people to get to Trump. You know who Trump listens to, whether it be Hannity or the late Lindsey Graham or indeed Laura Loomer, as you say. And so that is the way to get stuff done. I mean, the cliche phrase is, oh, more business is done on the golf course than it is done in the office, right? And that is Trump's administration down to a T, if you'd pardon the pun.
Yep. I think it's a master stroke. I really do. I mean, just watching her fighting, and I read all the replies to her posts because I love to see her fighting with her own fans, you know.
Yes.
And watching some of her own fans also change their mind. She's convincing them. I mean, ABC, CBS, NBC, could they do an interview with Zelenskyy and have that be as impactful at changing the hearts and minds of anti-Ukraine people in the United States, as this interview he did with Loomer. I mean, Loomer puts these clips out to millions of people people who have been the most hostile to Ukraine in the United States. I think it's just a brilliant masterstroke.
It's genius. Yeah.
You know, he's had some issues domestically. I know, you know, he fired a very popular head of the Ministry of Defense. I mean, he's having some issues internally, but I think externally, his foreign policy has just been fantastic.
Well, didn't he also fire his foreign policy person as well? I seem to remember there was two. Yeah. He didn't give any interviews to any of the legacy networks, though, did he? He literally just gave this interview to Loomer.
That's right. Yeah.
Clever. Yeah.
Very,
clever.
very interesting. I guess he's showing that he recognizes and respects the new independent media, of which I suppose Loomer begrudgingly would have to admit Loomer is part of that.
Right. I know. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about weapons and stockpiles, because there's been a rumor that Trump is, you know, using up so much of the US's military capability in Iran. And of course, the war is spreading, you know, and it doesn't seem to show any sign of abating. You know, the Gulf nations, and now there's retaliation from Gulf nations, and this war is, it went quiet for 2 days, didn't it? And then the stock market kind of went up, and the oil price came down, and you know, so maybe that was just Trump manipulating the markets, as he likes to do. But it went quiet for 2 days, and then a massive amount of missiles came back over again. And so the rumor is that the US is actually using up an awful lot of its ammunition, and that, you know, this could actually end up being a problem. Let's take a look at Mike Walls, who, of course, blames Joe Biden for the depletion of U.S. stockpiles. Let's take a look.
About the assets, NBC News is reporting the Pentagon is actually rationing some defense weaponry amid diminishing supplies. Is America backing away from a larger military attack because its military stockpile has been depleted?
Well, look, we have to take a step back here in that a lot of stockpiles were depleted, not only from what we gave Ukraine over the last however many years, 4 or 5 years, and the administration inherited, the Secretary Hegseth inherited a depleted situation from not only Ukraine, but also the ongoing fight with the Houthis under the Biden administration, and a depleted military under the Biden administration. So they have decided, one, they're going to new types of munitions, cheaper munitions, new technologies, but also with these new defense budgets, rebuilding our great military. However,
but you acknowledge
I want to be clear.
No, do you acknowledge they're depleted at this moment?
I want to be crystal clear. The U.S. military, and I've verified this every which way, has everything that it needs to conduct this campaign as effectively as it needs to be. And I have to tell you, the people that are leaking this nonsense deserve to be in jail.
Well, let me ask you, because you're saying they deserve to be in jail. Is that something the administration's going to pursue, putting people in jail?
Well, we have a number of leak investigations going on. I'll defer that to the Department of Justice. But here's the point. The point is the U.S. military has conducted a phenomenally successful campaign. We have never, as you know, I'm a veteran by background. We have never maintained this kind of air superiority, sea superiority, with unfettered access over Iran right now.
Mr. Ambassador, a lot of people are very interested in the timeline of this, because President Trump had initially said that this conflict would last for a matter of weeks, 5 to 6 weeks. He said we are now at the 5-month mark. Will this war be over by the new year?
Well, first, this war has been going on for 47 years. These attacks on Americans.
Okay, I'll stop it, especially when it comes to that bullshit about 47 years, which is their favorite go-to when asked this question. You know, he's all over the place, isn't he? And I mean, that's the problem here, is that we're not going to ever hold these people to account, because they just won't be.
It's one lie after it. It was just a blizzard of lies. Yeah. And it's frustrating to watch Kristen Welker attempt to do this, because, you know, she's completely unable or incapable of ever challenging the lies or pinning somebody down. She just doesn't do that. She asks the question, they lie, and she goes to the next thing.
Well, she's
That's
a
her
fake
interview
isn't she?
style.
Yeah,
and those questions are pre-written for her. You know, I don't know if she, prepares them herself. I tend to doubt it. So she has all these pre-scripted questions. She asks the questions. If they lie, she moves on. Anybody can do that job. I could pull somebody out of college to do that. So out of any journalism school in America to do that. So I'm not really, it's so frustrating to watch her. But the lie is this, is that we've primarily used 4 different kinds of missiles. Okay. We have 2 interceptors, and then we have 2 offensive missiles. The offensive missile would be like the Tomahawks, the ATACMS that they're called. Those are the offensive missiles. The Tomahawks are the longer range missiles. And then we have the interceptor missiles like the Patriot systems. Right. Now, what we know is that we provided 600 Patriot missiles. That's it, 600, which is a small number, a relatively small number during the Biden administration, which, by the way, was voted on and approved by Republicans who controlled the House at the time, passed that bill to authorize the Patriot systems, and Mike Waltz voted for it. So while he's sitting there blaming Biden for depleting our stockpiles and leaving the cupboards bare, this myth which is totally false, he is the one, when he was in Congress, who voted to do it. He was very pro-Ukraine. So you would think that Welker would go, well, wait a minute. The Republican House was in control of how they authorized it, and you voted for it. What are you talking about? Or pin him down on the specific missiles, because we provided 0 Tomahawks, none. We've never given Tomahawks to Ukraine. So, and the ATACMS stuff, we gave them lots of stuff, but we have like a massive supply of those. So when you really break it down and listen to the defense experts, this is just all hogwash. The reality is this. First of all, our Patriot missile systems right now, these are what intercepts incoming drones and missiles. It is 65% depleted. We have 1/3 of what the Trump administration started with, our normal stockpile right now. The other missile system, we're down about 25%, the interceptor missiles. And the reason for this is very simple, which is Trump is, as Adam Kinzinger said in an interview yesterday, risk averse when it comes to war. He is so afraid of U.S. casualties that he wants to fight this sort of video game style war where everything is done at a distance. U.S. troops don't get their hands dirty, because the very inexpensive, cheap weaponry, you got to get in up close and personal. Fighter jets, bombers have to fly over Iranian territory and get in close. And U.S. troops, to use those ground missiles, U.S. troops have to get up close to the Iranian border to do that. And Donald Trump doesn't want to fight the war that way, because that's when American troops get killed. And that's when the American public already doesn't want us there at all. So
it makes him look bad. Yeah.
Is so much more. If this is a war the American people would supported, as they did initially with Afghanistan and Iraq, they could tolerate a certain level of casualties. But when it's a war that they never wanted to be involved in at all, and he never made the case to the American people, every casualty is magnified. So what Trump is trying to do is fight this war with $1 million missiles, interceptors and missiles that we don't have a lot of because they cost a fortune. Instead of using the cheaper, quote unquote, dumb weapons, he's using our most expensive hardware and running it down, because he's risk averse in this conflict, because it's an unpopular conflict. So he has to be risk adverse politically. That is the reality of what is happening. And he had to stop the bombing because we are running out, and we cannot manufacture or replace these things, because some of these missiles take up to 6 months just to manufacture one of them.
But we have to remember that the only reason that Trump is risk averse is not because he cares about U.S. military families.
No.
Because it makes him look bad.
Exactly.
That's all. And so we have to see this through the through the
And that's
through the
why
lens
they
of a
take such
narcissist.
pains to hide the casualties.
Yes,
And
exactly.
to fudge the numbers, or to say,
Yes.
oh, those don't count as Iran war deaths.
Right.
That's
Because it was-
why he's doing
yeah.
that, because that proves to you how sensitive he is to these casualties, making
Yes.
him look bad.
Look bad. But it's the same with GDP. It's the same with jobs numbers. He's controlling all the information now. Everything comes through the White House before it goes public. Let's see him on Air Force One. I'm not sure which Air Force One, being asked about the stockpiles.
Are you concerned about depleted stockpiles if there is a rocking conflict in Iran?
We have plenty. We have a lot of ammunition, different types. You know, Biden gave a lot to Ukraine, and so we're building that up. But we have a lot. We have a lot of the mid-level stuff too. I mean, more than we could ever use, no matter what. But we have a lot. I'd like to have more, to be honest. But so much was given to Ukraine by Biden. When I left, the cupboards were full. When I came here with Obama, he didn't buy ammunition. We had very little. And I got it built. Now, as soon as I left, they gave a lot of it to Ukraine. I mean numbers that nobody's ever seen before. So we're building it very rapidly. Plants are being built. A lot of equipment is being built. The Patriots in particular are being built. The THAAD system is going up. We have a lot. Every one of our contractors is building 4 to 5 plants right now. And we're in very good shape. But for some of the more sophisticated stuff, we'd certainly like to have more. Biden gave a lot of it away.
Mr. President?
I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You can also tell with him because he uses the wrong language when he says that missiles are being built. You don't build missiles, you make missiles.
Yeah.
You might build a factory to make a missile in, but you know, his incorrect grammar actually gives away the fact that he's lying half the time.
Yeah. He mentioned THAAD missiles. Those are the other kind of interceptor missiles besides Patriot. Those are our 2 kinds. That's the one that's like a third depleted, where the Patriot systems are 2/3 depleted. He said one true thing in that statement, which was at the beginning and towards the end, which was, he said, we have lots of the mid-grade stuff and we're low on the high-end stuff. That's exactly the point I was just making before. The mid-level stuff, we have tons of it because he's not using any of it.
Yeah.
Because that would put U.S. soldiers more at risk of becoming casualties if we switch over to that stuff. Instead, we're using the most expensive high-end stuff that cost a fortune to replace and takes years to replace. That's the stuff that he's burning through. And then the next question I would say is this. At the time that we provided 600 Patriot missiles, by the way, he says, more than anybody's ever heard before. It was not. I mean, Ukraine is begging and pleading for missiles.
Yes.
And let's not let him rewrite his. First of all, I would say to this. So this was at a time when Ukraine they were completely could not defend their cities at that time, before Europe had really been able to provide them with any help. The U.S. was all they had. And Russia was bombing schools, hospitals, daycare facilities, churches,
war crimes,
parks. And we were providing the only way to stop a tremendous amount of civilian casualties was us providing these weapons, which almost every Republican in Congress was in favor of rushing those defense systems over to Ukraine. They were all in favor of it. So now I would say to him, are you saying that that was a mistake? That we should not have done that? That we should have allowed Putin to decimate Ukrainian cities and have hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties? Because that's what would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that's what Lindsey Graham wanted, the number one advocate among the Republicans in the Senate to get all that stuff over to Ukraine was Lindsey Graham. So if you want to blame anybody, you don't blame Joe Biden, you blame Lindsey Graham. And by the way, the reason why we did not give them Tomahawks, which are the longer range offensive weapons, is because Joe Biden did not want to do that. And that is something that Ukraine has been upset about and still upset about. Europe was upset about at the time, was that Joe Biden only wanted to provide them weapons to defend themselves and he did not want to provide them weapons to attack into Russia.
Right.
Ukraine had to manufacture that stuff themselves and Europe. Okay, they're not getting that stuff from us. They never have, and they're still not.
I mean, there is a counter argument that the fact that the US didn't give the kind of weaponry that Ukraine was asking for might have been part of the reason why they worked so hard to come up with their own weaponry, i.e. with the drone technology, and to pioneer so much of this technology that meant that they were able to then go bomb into Russia, right, without affecting their military personnel. So, you know, and look, the war is going to end up, and all wars going forward will be kind of robot based. You know, drones and robots on the grounds, and even the missile launchers now are driven close to enemy lines in robots, effectively, just on wheels. And then they fire the missile. It's very, very clever how things have changed and the speed at which this kind of ground warfare and air warfare has changed. But they reckon in a few years' time, there'll be no pilots flying warplanes into military zones, which is, I don't know what that's going to do for the kind of military industrial complex. It was the Farnborough Air Show last week. I mean, these people are desperate to sell planes, you know. Okay, we have to take a quick break, but I want to come back. We've got a lot more to talk about, including Elon Musk, who is having a bit of a meltdown about his popularity. We've got that and a whole lot more. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. When we first started this podcast, I honestly felt like I had to figure everything out entirely on my own. You suddenly have to wear a million hats, from writing scripts and setting up cameras to handling logos and tech. It gets super overwhelming, and that to-do list just completely overruns your life. When you're starting a business, you desperately need a tool that simplifies the chaos, and for millions of businesses, that partner is Shopify. Shopify is the powerhouse commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. What I love about it is that you don't need to be a tech genius. They have hundreds of ready-to-use templates, so you can build a beautiful online store that actually matches your brand's style. Plus, they have these incredible built-in AI tools that will literally write your product descriptions and enhance your photography for you. It completely tackles everything from inventory to payments to analytics, all in one single place, so you aren't constantly swapping between a dozen different websites. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/uncovered. Go to shopify.com/uncovered. That's shopify.com/uncovered. Losing weight is one thing, but feeling healthier, more confident, and more like yourself, that's the real goal. The truth is, weight management can be frustrating, especially when diet and exercise alone don't seem to be enough. That's why Weight Loss by Hims offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen, along with support to help you stay on track. With Wegovy at Hims, you can lose up to 20% of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps regulate your appetite so you eat less and keep the weight off. Plus, the Wegovy pill is the first ever GLP-1 pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. Getting started is simple. Everything happens online. You'll connect with a licensed provider who'll determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. You'll also have access to 24/7 messaging with your care team and in-app lifestyle and nutrition support to help keep you moving towards your goals. Ready to reach those goals? Visit hims.com/uncovered to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/uncovered. hims.com/uncovered. Weight Loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information and restrictions, visit hims.com. And you can find links to our sponsors in the description below. Okay, Ron, back to the show, and got a couple more clips of Donald Trump on Air Force One, actually, because, you know, He has no inner monologue, this guy. And I mean, arguably, he shouldn't really have been saying out loud about the missiles that we do have and what we don't have. I mean, would you say that that stuff should really be classified? I mean, the guy's just got too much of a big mouth. So this is a problem, and it's great for America's foes, whoever they may be these days. Not really sure who's a friend and who's a foe anymore. But there are some reports that the US has taken $13 billion from Venezuela. I mean, Trump used to boast about that on Air Force One as well. But there's also questions as to where that money has gone and what has he done with it. So he was asked that question on board. Let's take a look at his answer.
There's some reports that the United States has taken in $13 billion from Venezuela. Where is that money going?
$13 billion from Venezuela? I think even more than that. No, Venezuela, we paid for that war many times over. And that'll happen with Iran also. We paid for the war many times over.
That money going?
Which, by the way, no other president can say that for a long time. Okay? When was the last president that could say that? So we had a cost of Venezuela. We paid for it many, many times over. And now, as you know, we have a very good relationship with Venezuela.
But where is that money going?
For running the country.
No, in the U.S., the money that the U.S. is taking in, where is that money going?
Venezuela?
Yes.
But running the country. It can go to the military. You know, Congress has to approve it. Congress doesn't like approving money for the military. They like giving it to things that shouldn't be done. But we're taking in a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars from Venezuela. That'll happen with Iran, too.
What is he talking about? She asked him about money that the US had seized from Venezuela, and then he talks about money that we're taking in, like it's a tariff or something.
I mean, just think about how this played out. And it's just so frustrating to me that like no one in the media ever goes back and like does a quick rundown of the way these things played out.
Yeah. Well, we do,
like
Ron.
we do it on the
don't sell
show.
yourself short.
I don't see it anywhere else. You know, let's reset. He goes in there, he takes out the Maduro because the Maduro regime was supposedly like a narco-terrorist state, and they rigged elections, and they were anti-democratic and all of that, and their leading opposition person was an exile, Nobel Peace Prize winner, all of that. So he goes in and he grabs Maduro. At that time, what happened? You have all the Republicans in Congress going, this is great. They're all over the networks. This is great. Now we're going to have elections in Venezuela. The Venezuelan people are free. All the Venezuelan Americans in South Florida were all celebrating. Venezuela is going to be free. We finally got rid of the Maduro regime. This is great. Donald Trump rescued our country. Isn't this wonderful? Then what happens? Well, Donald Trump never had any intention of having Venezuela be free. Never had any intention of having any elections. Has blocked Delcy Rodriguez from returning to Venezuela. She actually tried to return, made it as far as Panama, and then the U.S. government refused to let her continue and prevented her from going back to Venezuela. So she's still in exile. Donald Trump has repeatedly been asked, when are you going to hold elections? He said, no, it's not time yet. You know, they're not ready. They're never going to be ready. Because what did Donald Trump do? He made a deal with everyone else in the Maduro regime that was still in place, including the vice president who became the president, that I will leave you in power. I won't bother you. You guys can do whatever you want to do. You can continue to hold all your political prisoners in cells. I'm not going to bother you. You could do whatever you want internally, but I want oil. You got to hand over a shit ton of oil to the United States. Right. We are going to sell it on the international market. You can have some of the money, but we're going to have a big chunk of that money. And that's what has been happening. And so finally, we have a government accounting report that revealed that over the last several months, how much money have we taken in as a result of basically stealing Venezuelan oil and selling it on the international market, which is another thing he's been doing to help keep oil prices down because of the Iran war. And we found out that they've taken in $13 billion. So the next question becomes, where's that money? Where did the money go? And you hear this reporter 3 times. First he says, oh, I used it to pay for the operation, but clearly that doesn't cover it. Well, it's helping run the country. What does that mean? And then he says, well, we can use it to go to the Department of Defense. Wait a minute. How come this is now being mentioned just now for the first time on Air Force One, that you're going to take this money and put it into the defense budget? Oh, that's the first we've heard of this. I've never heard anyone in the Trump administration say that, or any member of Congress say that. So the big question is, we know that Trump has been playing this shell game where he's constantly moving money around in the government, taking it away from this agency. When Congress appropriated it for one purpose, he'll grab it and take it and use it to build the arch or the ballroom. He's grabbing money and moving it around. Mostly it's Scott Bessent who's doing that, the Treasury Secretary. So that begs the question. You've got $13 billion. Where is it? Where's the money? Nobody knows. And since Republicans control both the House and Senate, they will not do any hearings on this. It's a simple. Let's have a one-day hearing. Bring Scott Bessent in and ask him what happened to the $13 billion from where is the money? Let's get an accounting. But that hasn't happened and won't happen until Democrats take at least one of the chambers. And it also is a failure on the part of the press. I give credit to that one reporter, but here's the problem. That reporter was asking that question because that story just broke that morning. This is what our media does. They will ask about the news from most media companies put out their stories between 7 and 9 a.m. Eastern time. That's when they put out all their stories that were written the night before. That story comes out, and it was New York Times or something, NBC. So that reporter asked Trump about it that day. He gives this bullshit answer, and then they will move on. They will never go back and ask about it.
Because they're just playing a role.
That's the frustrating part.
Yeah. The reporter is acting the role of a reporter, and the president is acting the role of the president. And everyone's playing their games. And, I had the misfortune of watching CNN for 10 minutes the other day, and they had a bunch of people on, and everybody was playing the role of a talking head. Okay, you've got 20 seconds to say something. You've got, nothing meant anything. Yeah. Everything is so inauthentic. And just while we're on this subject, I know, right? Just while we're on this subject, if you don't mind a quick divergence, Kristen Walker, who we watched earlier in that clip, was filmed laughing around with Stephen Miller at the White House Correspondents Dinner.
Having a good old time.
Having a good old time. Stephen Miller, the architect of the family separation policy, the abductions, the executions, the worst kind of far-right racist nationalist in Trump's orbit, an unelected bureaucrat who basically has shifted the country into a dystopian place. And she is laughing with him. Now, I'm sure if she was asked directly, which nobody has, and I don't know why it's not a bigger story, like, what were you talking about? Maybe she was teeing him up for an interview. I don't know. Playing him. Hopefully that's what reporters should do. But it actually looked like she was on his team. And it was everything that is wrong with mainstream and legacy media was displayed in that clip of them having a chuckle together.
This is why I don't want to live in DC. Doing this job, covering Congress and Trump, I could obviously live anywhere I want. Everything is done digitally now. And, I could be in DC where I could talk to some of these people face to face, but I don't want to do it because it's just like this game that they play. They develop these relationships and they get cozy with each other and they go out to drinks and restaurants and they hang out at these parties like the White House Correspondents Dinner, and they become chummy. And I can't imagine that it doesn't affect their ability to cover these people and affect their ability to really go after them. And that's why I've always wanted to stay away from that whole scene, stay away from it, because I'm not influenced by any of that stuff. It's not a game to me. I'm not playing some fake game where I'm going on CNN and MSNBC and spouting off BS talking points that I read online and, checking in and doing my 5-minute hit. Like, legitimately what I'm saying, I 100% believe to my core, in my soul, in my heart. Like, this is what I think. Like no one could ever pay me any amount of money to play those games or say something I didn't believe. And it's so obvious that like so many of them, that's what they do.
Are you using your real voice right now? Because Kristen Walker, when she was in the farmyard building interviewing Trump, and when the rain was hitting the roof, I think I mentioned this the other week, when she thought they were about to cut because the noise of the rain was too loud, she went into a completely different voice to ask the crew if they should stop filming.
Yeah.
And then when they said no, carry on, then she assumed a completely different character, Ron, and carried on the interview. And I was like, who are you?
What? Because that's why like modern legacy media is more like Hollywood. They want attractive people, who speak well, who can present a script, who can play a role.
Yes,
it's like they're playing the part of a
reporter on a show. Yeah,
they're not like these TV shows and these networks. They're not bringing in like real serious reporters to put in those anchor chairs. They want someone who looks and sounds the part, but they're incapable of doing the job.
But also, if they don't have an opinion, or if they aren't authentically interested in the story, then they can't be trusted to be journalists. Yeah. Because you have to take a position. Journalism is not taking a position. It's getting to the truth.
All these journalists that I most admire who really break these big stories and do real investigative work, you never see them on TV. I mean, I read their columns, I read their stories, but they don't put them on cable news because a lot of them are not telegenic. Maybe their voices are annoying or they're nerds or whatever. Maybe they're not pithy and quick enough. Maybe they're not funny enough. Maybe they're not good at one-liners. They take a long time to make their point verbally. So the people that are truly some of the great journalists in this country, you never see them on television. They're never on the network news, but they're doing great work. You just don't.
But it's the same with experts. Right. It's the same with scholars and clinicians and people that have something important to say. But it's only American television, Ron, because in the UK and in Europe, they will bore you to death bringing in a scientist who will talk for hours, in a very kind of not very interesting way. But the information is what matters. It is endlessly frustrating. All right, well, let's look at a couple of clips of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. This was the one that was rescheduled because, of course, they pretended that someone was trying to kill the president. Trump was not on good form this night. I don't know what was going on. Maybe the uppers hadn't kicked in, or maybe it was too late and he was tired, or I have no idea what was going on with him, but it was a disaster. He admitted to the fact that it was a disaster. Like, he knows that none of these jokes were landing. And they didn't book a comedian like they do traditionally because Trump is the only stand-up comedian in this town. Let's take a look.
Because I see what's happening. The other day, a senator I knew got a text, a great guy, from his wife. And she said, when you get home, I want to have you immediately come up the stairs and make love to me. And he said, I can't do both. You know what? In other words, can't go up the stairs and make love. Does anybody get that? Well, I thought that was actually pretty good. That was actually the only thing I thought was good in this whole freaking stupid speech that they wrote. That was the only good one, and that went down with not exactly great laughter. I think, in other words, you can't go up the stairs and make love, too, So we're looking for term limits. Does anybody understand this stuff?
Is it over yet?
Yeah, I mean, he was bombing. Here's the thing. About a third of that audience were Trump administration people.
Right.
So, what a lot of the reporters thought was that they were going to be like laughing at every joke and they were going to be loud and boisterous. And it might give the impression, I think a lot of the reporters in the room were a little concerned that might give the impression that they were the ones laughing at these terrible jokes. But in reality, even his own people were not laughing. They didn't get these jokes because look, here's the bottom line. Trump can't get any celebrity artists, performers to perform at any of his events. So he has to drag up these dregs of like has-beens and never was, like
Lee Greenwood,
Rock and Lee Greenwood and all these flunkies. That's all Vanilla Ice. That's all he can get. Yes. And it's the same thing with his comedy writing. You know, he can't get any real comedy writers or TV writers to work for him or to write any. So he, you know, what does he do? He brings in Steve Chung and Stephen Miller and a couple other knuckleheads. And they, you know, maybe that guy from Fox who's supposed to be the comedian on Fox. I forgot his name.
Him.
He does the late night show, the short guy.
It's Agony.
On the 5. Agony. Yeah. He's supposed to be their resident comedian. He's their late night host. And, you know, maybe they brought him in. I don't know. But there wasn't one funny joke in the entire speech. And not only that, not only were the jokes not funny, a lot of them were just grossly inappropriate.
Yes.
And disgusting. And they kind of like that one, you know, and it kind of freaked people out. So this whole thing was a total disaster. This should have never happened. This dinner needs to be canceled. I mean, there might have been an era, you know, back in the day, you know, with JFK, Reagan, you know, back then when politics was different.
It was like a roast, wasn't it? It was like a roast.
It used to be like a Frank Sinatra style roast.
Right. Yeah.
And back then it worked, you know, and they were some of those were very classic and very funny. And Obama was good at these things. Yeah. But it's just not possible in this era. And then when you see these clips like you saw of Kristen Welker laughing it up with Stephen Miller on the side, like that just pisses people off. So this whole thing is just a bad idea in the Trump era.
One of Donald Trump's favorite lines in his stand-up comedy routines is getting at Caitlin Collins for having a serious face when reporting on fascism. Now, we all know that when you report on fascism, you should do it with a big smile, especially if you're a female, Ron. Come on, make the best of yourself. You're a good-looking girl. So, of course, he brought that to his routine as well. Let's take a look.
But they'll learn their lesson. But I want to personally congratulate CNN's Caitlin Collins on receiving her award. It was all about me. It's a fake. She shouldn't get the award. It was a fake, but I didn't mind. I said, Caitlin, congratulations. But it was fake. There's no question about it. But she's a young, attractive woman. She never smiles. I said, Caitlin, do you have a smile? Smile. You have a nice position. You're at CNN Fake News. You should be a happy person. So smile, Caitlin. Just smile. But we attack, and I thought Caitlin had really made it big with a major new sponsorship, but then I informed her that it wasn't her on the Bud Light can. It was Dylan Mulvaney. And Dylan Mulvaney cost Bud Light $35 billion in market cap. That was the worst commercial ever made, by the way, for those few people that want to hear that. Most people don't care, but I would. I wouldn't want to hire Dylan anytime soon. Think of it, they hired Dylan Mulvaney, and their market cap has gone down by $35 billion. Who wrote that commercial? And then you have writer Josh.
Yeah, who wrote that joke? I mean, this...
Most people don't even know who he's talking about.
No.
They don't even know the reference point.
Yeah, but these aren't jokes, Ron. You know, the jokes require a setup. They require a little narrative arc, and then they have a
joke about
payoff and a punchline.
Smile more. You didn't think that was funny? No.
You
notice he never tells any male reporters that they should smile more.
Yeah,
it's only the female reporters that he gets upset when they don't smile at him. I wonder why that is.
I mean, there's so much depth to this, actually. We don't really have time for it. But, you know, you could connect this to the kind of the male dominance and the control aspects of this kind of white nationalism and these Christian nationalists where their wives can't vote and, you know, they have to stay at home and in the kitchen and making meals and making babies. And, you know, this idea that women shouldn't have autonomy, that women shouldn't be reporters, that women don't belong in this kind of male space. You know, like I say, it's a longer conversation, but it's very interesting. And it's so misogynistic, but it's also The Handmaid's Tale playing out before our very eyes. I just wanted to say something, though, because Wolf Blitzer was sitting next to her. And, of course, there was, I mean, the one good thing that did come out of this Correspondents' Dinner was when Blitzer was up there announcing the winner of an award for coverage of the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And Trump had to then get up and shake the hands of every journalist who had exposed him in the Epstein files. It was the weirdest, the most dystopian thing, bizarre, bonkers wrong. And that's what it's come to. But I was just frustrated that every journalist in the room had not got up and walked out earlier during Trump's speech and planned it like a flash mob and really, because that would have hurt him, and made the point that you cannot you cannot kind of change you can't call us fake news and also want to host the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The two things are incompatible. So let's all leave.
Look, there are plenty of correspondents who had an opportunity to go to that who didn't. And I think those are the ones who would have walked out. So clearly the people who are there are the kinds of people who would not do that. So otherwise they wouldn't have attended in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, we have to give credit, I think, to the New York Times who did not participate. You know, they were not there.
Yes.
They did not allow any of their people to be there.
Yes.
And, you know, I've been critical of the New York Times in the past. I canceled my subscription. I don't remember what it was that ultimately caused me to cancel it. Although I begrudgingly went crawling back to sign back up for the cooking. I had to break down and go back and subscribe to their cooking page. But the news I still haven't. I still get stuff from gift articles because I read it every day. But I will say, like, their coverage of this Trump administration has been really, really good. And they're the ones, the majority of the really big stories that have been broken have been the New York Times. And they refuse to participate in this event. So I'll give them
that's a start, I suppose. I'll get to the Elon Musk story in just a moment, though. I want to talk about this Saudi deal, this kind of nuclear announcement, where it's okay for Saudi Arabia to enrich, nuclear, what's it called? The enriched nuclear...
Uranium. Yeah.
Uranium. There we go. Sorry. I really feel like, again, we're living in this parallel universe of insanity here, because, of course, the whole point of the Iran war was to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. But apparently, with Saudi on your team, they can do whatever they want. And Saudi, let's not forget, were and probably still are sponsors of Hamas with their efforts in against Israel. So it doesn't make any sense, does it? And yet,
no.
Here we are, and Caroline Levitt had to defend it. Let's have a quick look.
Region, and yes, this deal with Saudi Arabia, the energy deal, is contingent on this condition as far as the president is concerned. So we'll continue to talk with our Saudi counterparts to get the deal finalized and hopefully see them joining the Abraham Accords very soon. Thank you. Gabe.
Caroline, thank you. With regard to the Saudi nuclear deal, why was that condition not mentioned yesterday when the Energy Secretary announced it?
Well, look, the president is always the final deal maker, as you know, and this is something that he has mentioned on numerous occasions going back. I can provide you with those statements, and he has said if they don't join the Abraham Accords, the deal is off. So we'll continue to have those conversations with our Saudi counterparts moving forward.
So the deal is dead if Saudi Arabia doesn't join. And have you any indication that Saudi Arabia is even considering this?
Again, the president has spoken directly with the Saudis about this in numerous conversations in the past, and the administration will continue to engage in those conversations. Alexandra.
Be exempt from international inspections as part of this deal if it moves forward?
I don't want to comment on the specifics of the deal, as we're still, again, as I just said, talking especially about this very important condition that the president raised this morning. Alexandra.
The art of saying nothing, Ron. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, so who is very much against this Saudi nuclear deal? to provide Saudi Arabia with nuclear technology. Israel adamantly opposed.
Yep.
Most of the Republicans in Congress, including the vast majority of the Republican senators, Fox News is 100% against this. So Trump's own people are against this deal, but Trump has extensive personal business ties to the Saudi regime. He is a close relationship with MBS.
Mm-hmm.
The Saudis are financing numerous Trump resorts all over the Middle East that they are helping pay for and putting money in his pocket. They gave $2 billion to Jared Kushner to invest around the world, which he had never run a hedge fund before. So a rookie investor got $2 billion from the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. So we know that he is personally owes the Saudis a lot, and they expect him to deliver. And this is what they wanted. They want this, and they want AI chips, which they've already gotten. So this is a big thing to the Saudis. So what happens is Trump's getting a lot of opposition from his own people. He can't get this through Congress. And then the other day, his energy secretary, Chris Wright, announces that the Saudis have signed a deal, that it's a done deal with the U.S. government. This is done and over with.
Yep.
And what happened is they didn't tell anyone in Congress about this. And the Republicans in Congress, it's so crazy. And I'm like, why don't you ever read about this stuff or see this stuff on CNN? I'm giving you like the real what actually happened. I mean, it's all right. It's all in, you can read it if you want to dig hard enough and find the stories. So, because you're not going to get it on mainstream television. So Wright comes out and he announces the deal. And then what happens is all the Republicans in Congress went nuts. Fox News went nuts. They did a whole day of programming trashing this deal, host after host after host. And then Trump put the following morning, 24 hours later, puts out a True Social and says, actually, we're not going ahead with this deal unless Saudi Arabia joins the Abraham Accords, which Saudi Arabia has said many, many, many times they will never join the Abraham Accords, because it involves a lot of things about recognizing Israel in certain aspects of the territory that they want to control. That's part of the Abraham Accords, and Saudi will not do it. So Trump basically just reneges on the deal because he knows, and Caroline Leavitt know, that the Saudis are never going to join the Abraham Accords. So he comes out after the deal has already been signed and agreed to and imposes this new condition that he knows they won't agree to, which is basically just taking the agreement and going, I changed my mind 24 hours later. And the Saudis were out there going, statements from their foreign ministers, they were saying, wait a minute, we have this in writing. Like, I don't know what legal effect this True Social post is, but we actually signed a deal in writing with the United States government. Like, so what, is it gone now? Like they're mystified. So
this is how Trump does business.
Is a complete fiasco, and we don't know what's going to happen right now from this point forward.
Can you imagine, Ron, the audit that is going to come in 5 or 10 years' time whenever this regime collapses and is no more? And the audit, when they have to go back and whoever it will be, Democrats, I presume, have to go through every transaction and every piece of paperwork and see where every dollar and every dime went. It is going to uncover, Trump will be long dead probably, but it will uncover the most corrupt financial activities in history. A level of fraud that would never have even been considered in makes, Watergate look like child's play. I mean, all of it. I look forward to that day, but Scott Besson and they will all go to prison, these people. Caroline Leavitt there, again, with the kind of lying lips. They will all have to go to prison.
I would hate to be a staffer on the House Oversight Committee when the Democrats take over, because I know for a fact that they plan on 24/7 investigations. So you got Raskin on judiciary and you got Garcia on oversight that already have like a stack of investigations ready to go. Like they got subpoenas ready to go out. They can't do it now because they don't have any control or authority. But literally like January 2027, assuming that Democrats take control of at least the House, the Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee and the Armed Services Committee, all these committees, Commerce, the Trump administration is going to be living in front of these committees. They are going to be in there every single day. Hegseth being dragged in there about the school bombing. And it's not going to be this running out the clock filibustering like they're able to get away with now. That's not going to happen when Democrats take over. They know this, and that's why they're so insane and crazy about the SAVE Act and tampering with the elections, because they dread the next 2 years if Democrats take control.
They have to win. I want to play this quick clip of the DSA vice chair talking about the party platform on Fox.
So we're going to put up on the screen a few of the things that are part of your platform, and I want to ask you, just give me sort of a true or false on these. Abolish the Senate. True. Okay. Replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them. Yep. Abolish ICE. Absolutely. Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally. As a long-term plan, yep. Defund the Pentagon. Absolutely. Abolish prisons, at least in large part. Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah. Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations. Yeah, absolutely.
What's your take on this? Because I have mixed opinions.
This is this actually interview set off a kind of that was a big deal. I think that shocked a lot of people. I think it shocked a lot of Democrats who were sympathetic to DSA or open to a lot of their ideas, especially on affordability, the stuff that Mamdani has been focused on. But I think that always, and look, I've defended them. You've defended them. I mean, there are a lot of mainstream Democrats some of them are very hostile to the DSA people. Some of them are not. Some of them have been defending them because they like a lot of their ideas, including me.
Yeah.
But, it always sort of in the back of my mind, I'm always like, well, what do we really know? How much do we really know about what they stand for, and what's their foreign policy? What's their policy on Social Security? What's their policy on taxes? We don't know. Because Mamdani is running for mayor of New York. He doesn't get into all that stuff, and I don't know that
there's plenty of others.
I don't know that he personally holds some of these positions that are in the platform. Okay. So Fox is the first one to bring someone from the DSA, the vice chair, and ask them about specific things in their platform.
Right.
So far as I know, no other media outlet had done that. And then
but it's a hit piece, though, Ron. It's a hit piece.
It was definitely a hit piece. But at the same time, I can tell you, because I put that out among our members and our readers, and they were shocked. They were stunned to hear those answers.
Yes.
And I think it's caused a lot of Democrats to reassess and reevaluate who DSA is and what they believe. Because if they believe in abolishing the Department of Defense and closing all the prisons and opening the borders and giving everyone amnesty, then you become one of these European 10% style parties. And you're not going to be a movement that's going to become a major force in American politics if you're going to take some of these fringe positions. And I haven't heard any of the people actually running for office take these positions, but I also haven't heard them asked, those questions. So this is a very concerning interview. And I hope that, these are not going to become mainstream positions of the Democratic Party. Some of these things. Now, abolishing ICE, that's a mainstream Democratic position.
Sure.
But some of these other things are not.
Part of the problem here, though, is that Democrats are in a broad tent, as we describe it.
Yeah.
Megan Roma, this co-chair, She's not really like media trained. She's somebody who should not be on television because, you know, you can't reel off a list of very nuanced subjects and say, give me a yes or no answer, because it doesn't work. So that's why this is a hit piece. They've chosen someone specifically who doesn't know how to answer these this type of story. And so probably has personal views, and obviously there are things you discuss privately which you can't put out in policy because it's too much for people to digest. So I think this was just a disaster, and I think that Megan Roma,
Republicans are using it,
and they will continue.
Every Democrat now, and that's really what a lot of these establishment Democrats feared, is that they're going to use some of these fringe positions that maybe individuals have. And stick the whole party with it,
and it will keep.
I don't necessarily think it's going to work, but they're certainly.
It will keep happening because Trump's position is to brand people as communists, and that's what they're gonna use.
And she stepped right into that trap.
She fell right into the trap, and really, the advice that she should have been given is do not go on Fox, because Fox is never ever going to give
friends.
They're not your friends. They're not going to give you a fair hearing. All right, tell me about the Elon Musk story, because this is very interesting. He has a meltdown because of his popularity is kind of through the floor and everything else. Just give me a quick précis before I play this clip, because we're a bit short on time.
So he's having a very difficult couple of weeks. You know, he did this crusade about the Odyssey, trying to tell everybody not to go see it, and it's breaking records all over the world with the amount of money that it's bringing in, and they're actually like increasing the number of screens to accommodate it, despite his attempt. See, he believes that this cyber world that he inhabits on X, because he has all these millions of followers, that these are all like real people and not bots and nonsense. You know, he believes that they're all real people, and all this engagement that he gets of all these people on his own platform, where he controls the algorithm, validates his views, because look, I put these opinions out and everyone agrees with me on X. Isn't this amazing? 25 million people agree with me. So when he's confronted with actually most of the people, as the editor-in-chief of The Economist did a very good interview of him, pinned him down and was pointed out, actually the vast majority of people around the world hate you and despise you. And, he was arguing with this interviewer, but this is also at the same time where his stock price, SpaceX went public on paper. He became a trillionaire for a couple of days. Then the stock price actually just bottomed out and tanked.
That's right.
Now he's ceded control of SpaceX because he needed the money. He needed to raise the money for his AI company. He's pouring all the money from Tesla, and now the money that he's raised from the public offering in SpaceX into his AI company. He's pushing all the chips and betting everything on his Grok AI, that's going to take over and dominate the world. And so he's leveraged to the hilt, but by doing that, he's now lost control of SpaceX, and the stock price has tumbled. So he's very irritable about that whole situation. He's irritable about the Odyssey. So he's been going on this rampage about this woman who did the interview, that she was horrible and made him look terrible and all this stuff. And then Chef Jose Andres, who's who runs the World Central Kitchen, which is if you know this man,
that's right, he's one of the sweetest guys.
He's the most wonderful person in the world. He's just
the biggest
incredible guy. Follows me on Twitter too, so it even more proves what a great guy he is. Just a saint of a person. Tries to be nice to him and says, listen, Elon, you need to back down a little and take a breather, take a drink of water, he said, and just relax and calm down. Focus on your car company and stuff. And he called Chef Andres an asshole, and then everybody went after him for calling Chef Andres an asshole. So this guy's really circling the drain. But the scary part is how intertwined he is with the United States government in the Department of Defense while he's circling the drain in his drug-fueled, rampages.
Yeah. Well, he also said that he regretted some of the things he did at Doge and maybe went too far. A little bit late for that now, isn't it? Let's have a quick look.
I mean, some people do loathe you.
Yes, some people do.
But do you understand why? Do you think what you're doing is helpful for Western democracy?
Maybe some people do loathe me. And that's probably true. I don't care. But the fact that, as you pointed out, 250 million people follow me is that I think a lot more people actually like me than don't. And I think a lot more people hate you and the media more than you realize. Do you realize the media is despised? Do you realize that journalists, the view of journalists is like a favorable view of journalists is like 15%.
I do know that in the United States.
So the shoe is on the other foot. They hate you. They hate you far more than they hate me.
I think there is.
I mean, the guy is just gone. I think a lot of these people have gone, but he's really. The lights are on now, but no one's home. And still, because he's so rich, because I watched quite a bit of that interview and she really did blow quite a lot of smoke up his backside, they still kind of bow down to his better judgment because he's wealthy. And it's like, I actually think the guy's a total fraud.
I didn't think it was an especially tough interview at all.
Not at
and
all.
He still lost it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, we have to go, but I'm thrilled for the chat as always. Don't forget to download the audio podcast and check out the additional drops that you're going to start getting from next week on that channel. So it's all free and it's all available to you here on Uncovered. We'll come back next Wednesday and bring you another episode. Thanks a lot, Ron.
All right. See you next week, everybody.